Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the update preview stream. This is Bugs here. I'm joined today by Miss D and Artemis. Say hi, guys.
Hey everyone.
Hi guys.
So, what do we have going on today? Well, we are 1 week since the update and forced wipe, and there is a bunch of cool stuff on the horizon. Although, as with many first Thursday update preview streams after the forced wipe, not a whole ton to show off on staging as of this moment. We will go through everything that's going on in Rust development as always. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to do at Miss D underscore that's me in chat, and we'll get to as many questions as we have the opportunity to. Also, one thing, because it is Thursday, a lot of people are wondering when's WIP. And the wipes are happening at regular scheduled time for the region for Rustafied servers. And to clarify what that means, it's 3 p.m. local time for each region when the servers wipe on Thursdays that aren't first Thursdays. And so we had AU and SEA mains wipe like 12, 13 hours ago. We had EU servers wipe 3 hours ago. And then 2 hours from now, we've got the US servers wiping. And these are just the weekly Thursday wipe servers. So that's your mains, your smalls. I was going to say your barons, but Baron, RIP Baron. Baron is no longer around. Baron was replaced, by the way, with our solo servers, first ever on the official list solo servers, both in US and EU. Now, those actually, due to popular demand and a poll on our Discord, did switch to bi weekly wipes. So the solos are not wiping today. They will wipe with the mediums and trios next Thursday. What else we got? EUS wiped in EU, and the ZenLab servers also wiped today. So once again, all the servers for Rustified that are wiping today, for the most part, have wiped except US main, US small, and US Zen Labs. And those will wipe in 2 hours at 3 p.m. EST. These are map wipes only, as the forced wipe and optional blueprint wipe was last week. And that is what's going on with server wipes today. So let's get into it. What is going on in Rust development? So, top of the list, biggest thing is backpacks are incoming. Now, according to the dev blog last week, backpacks are supposed to be hitting staging this week. And I was kind of expecting them to be on staging already. I was hoping to show them off to y'all today during this stream. However, they're not quite merged in yet. They appear to be on aux 2 branch, which is a version of staging for very initial testing. As it stands now, though, aux 2 is not available to the public. And so, no backpacks to show off today. We do just have a teaser image from the developers. And we do have some information, though, on what the backpacks are going to be once they come in. So, if you read the dev blog last week, you'll know they're planning on launching the backpacks this week for testing for the majority of the month, and then having them go live in game for the February 1st update, which is the next forced wipe and first Thursday update. So, although they're not in yet, we do know a couple things. One, and by the way, all this is subject to change, so don't get too caught up on anything. It's very likely the nitty gritty specifics of this are going to change. But what we're seeing based on the commits so far is there's going to be two types of backpacks, a small and a large backpack. The small backpack will be craftable and it will give you an extra 12 slots. So that's like 2 rows. And to craft it, it's going to be 5 sewing kits and 50 cloth to start. And that will just get you 12 extra inventory slots. The backpack itself will go in the parachute inventory slot, that same new-ish inventory slot that came about when the parachutes went in the game. And I guess the idea is you'll craft a backpack or you'll find a backpack, you'll put in that slot, and then your inventory on your player will increase by the slots that that backpack has. So small backpack, 12 slots, large backpack, 30 slots. That's a lot of slots. Now, the interesting thing about the large backpack is it's not craftable, apparently. So it'll probably have to be found or purchased somewhere. We don't have any specifics about where it'll be found or if and how it will be purchased, but it will not be craftable and it will be large. So this is really a paradigm shift for inventory management in the game. This is going to be a big game changer. Now, we don't know what the downsides of the backpack are going to be. The obvious one would be if you got a full backpack, you walk slower or you can't run or something like that. But we're not seeing any specifics on that via the commits yet. So we don't know what, if any, like hindrances you'll have from carrying a full backpack. And we don't know exactly where you'll obtain each backpack. I'm also not sure in the picture that we have of a backpack, is that the small backpack or is that the large backpack? I don't know. I feel like it might be the small because I don't know, 30 slots for a large backpack. It seems like that would be a large backpack. And maybe the big downside is that you'll just be a bigger target because you got a backpack on your back. I'm not sure. So we'll have to keep you posted as more information comes to light on the backpacks. And kind of my plan, I think the backpacks are going to be merged into staging any time now. I kind of have the sense like the devs were shooting to get them in merged in already, and it just maybe a couple things got delayed or something. So I feel like any day now we will have the backpacks come into staging. And what I'll do is I'll make sure to do a tweet and update rustified.com. I do an article every Thursday there with the specifics of what's going on in development. I'll make sure to update that, do an edit on there with any interesting tidbits of what the backpacks entail prior to next week. So if it gets merged in like tomorrow, then keep an eye out on X or Twitter or whatever, and I'll post some details about like how you get the large backpack and what the hindrances might be. Anything that comes to light once it's merged into staging. And then also the plan is next week for the update preview stream, which we do every Thursday, same time, same place. We'll be able to ideally on staging really show off these backpacks in person and answer any questions that y'all may have. So that's the backpacks. They are still on target to come in for the February 1st update, which is what, 3 weeks from today. And we'll have the majority of this month, it looks like, to give feedback and test and all that good stuff. So that is what's going on with backpacks. Also, one of the big projects that we're seeing a lot of velocity of commits on is metal detectors. So this appears to be another new item to enter the game in the near future that maybe it will even come in February. Given the velocity at which they're working on it, I think that is a possibility. Still not sure exactly what the use case for these is going to be. I mean, we all know what a metal detector is. We've all seen that like middle-aged dude on the beach. And I think we've all wondered, man, does he actually get some good stuff? I guess he must find a wedding ring every now and again on the beach. But is that what we're going to be doing in Rust? Are they going to add rings under the sand and we're going to be sweeping for loot? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe they will add small deposits of metal or something like that under the ground in certain areas. And this will be a new way of like gathering maybe slightly higher quality resources from the ground. Will it be used to find hidden stashes? Or maybe if you have a hidden stash with just metal in it, it'll ping on those. I don't know. I could see a lot of players not liking that. I could also see a lot of issues arising with that. So I'm not sure if this is going to be used to find small stashes or it's just going to be used to find like various metal based resources under the ground and they'll just add some deposits of that under the ground on ProcGen. And this will just be a new way to source metal. Either way, on a separate branch, still being worked on. So once that gets merged in, we are definitely going to do a deep dive on metal detection and what that is going to do for the game. Also, there's a bunch of other stuff being worked on. If you read the dev blog last week, which I recommend you do, it gives a little insight into what their plans for the year are, what things they're going to be working on, kind of a little bit on the development cycle. So we know like backpacks are going to be coming for the February update. We also know, based on what they were saying, that they are planning on having some light or no content months here where they just focus on some older stuff. So they're going to be working on the older monuments and reworking them and improving them. They're going to be continuing to experiment and making meta changes to gunplay, which I think is a really good one for them to be working on. They're going to be doing some game mode improvements and experimentation for softcore and hardcore game modes, maybe get some life back into those game modes, experimenting with progression. They're doing a lot with AI. So if you're wondering about pets and when pets are going to come in, it looks like the kind of milestone or the hurdle of getting a new AI developer on board and reworking the AI once again is probably a prerequisite to the pets actually coming in. They're going to be doing improvements to patrol helicopter, launch site, APC, and cargo ship. They're changing the world environment, some of which we're seeing already on staging today, and I'll touch on that briefly. They're going to be doing more with underwater exploration and building out missions more and balancing using the data analytics that they got and also encouraging and experimenting with new ways of encouraging players to engage in PvP. So that's all worked into this year as well. They're of course working on anti-cheat and working with EAC to improve anti-cheat. And man, if I had like the ability to prioritize anything, I would put that one on top. And of course, I know it's not the developers necessarily working on it. They're working with EAC, and I know a lot of developers just work on things like graphics and stuff. So it's not on them to work on anti-cheat. But man, we could use some wins in the anti-cheat department. They're also going to be working on global rendering. So the bases you can see from across the map, that'll be worked on, and doing some ongoing stuff with performance. So that's all. We're seeing some of that stuff be worked on already this week. We're seeing work on the compound redesign. So that's one of the monuments that they're improving and reworking first. There's new cosmetic flowers being worked on. A random thing, they fixed the size of the burst module attachment. Apparently, it was too big. There's some new barrel textures that are coming in. Now, this seems to be a work in progress. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we were talking before the stream. If you look at these cliffs and the rock formations, don't those look brighter to you? And then if we went inside and we look at the fireplace, the fire is like, let's just say different visual effects than we're used to. And then also some new barrel textures are coming in. And it looks like a lot of the barrels at Junk Pile are white at the moment. And then also, I put on a blue long sleeve shirt just so I wouldn't be naked on stream. And you can see my blue shirt is kind of gray. So I think on staging right now, they're in the middle of modifying some like colors and textures and shading and visual effects and stuff like that. And I imagine we're going to continue to see more in that realm over the coming months and stuff like that. So also within that realm, they're doing some work on new explosion FX. And if you've ever like paused, like freeze framed the explosion FX in the game, you'll know they're kind of like pixelated, low poly kind of like what are they called? Sprites? I don't know. I'm not a game developer. Forgive me. Thank you. But yeah, they're working on new visual effects for explosions as well. Along with this, they're working on player rig work. This is something we've seen a lot on the past couple months. Different use cases with ragdolls and how it interacts with vehicles and terrain elements and everything like that. So we're continuing to see work on that. There's also improvements coming to the map vendor UI, and that's going to be the in-game map. And when you have vendors, that's I don't think merged in yet, so we can't show you that yet. And then also they're doing improvements to repair cost calculations, specifically with items that have a lot of components. And specifically the auto turrets, they were costing a lot of high quality metal to repair, and they rejiggered the calculation of repair cost for especially those types of items with a lot of components and made it so it's more reasonable to repair. So to repair an auto turret, according to the commits now, is apparently like 4 or 5 high quality metal, I think, instead of like 40. So that's a nice little quality of life change for reparations. And no, reparations is not the word there. Repairing. We'll just call it repairing. Reparations, I think, is something different. Anyway, also going on this weekend, Trust in Rust is coming back. This is a charity event run by Toria and everything like that. It starts this Saturday. It goes for a week. There's going to be exclusive drops. It's all raising funds for cancer research in the UK. And I encourage you to go link your accounts and give to the cause if that's something that you feel so inclined to do. And that's Trust in Rust. There's a couple different teams competing against things. So you can tune in, watch the competition, get the drops, give to a good cause, and trust in Rust. So that's going on Saturday to Saturday. And I feel like I'm missing something, but it's not on my article, so we'll just go with it. That's about what's going on. Do we have any questions from the audience, Misty?
I think we have a few only. I think someone was asking, so are you getting slower with the backpacks or not? I didn't get that. But then I saw someone else saying, Alistar said on Twitter that there will be no movement speed nerf.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that clarification. I try to look at Alistair's responses for everything on Twitter, but it can be hard to track. But that's interesting. That's one of the things I was holding out to see. So it doesn't look like there will be a movement nerf with the backpacks. So maybe you'll just be a bigger target and it'll increase your hitbox and that will be the thing that is the downside. I don't know. It seems like there's if you're carrying 30 extra inventory slots, it seems like there'd be some downside somewhere, right? But we'll see.
And this one has a few questions in it. Any update on what the U2 stuff is? There's been a decent amount of commits that for that. Are we expecting any lunar mask this year? I've seen almost no commits for that.
Yeah, so that's kind of two questions there. So there is the U2's stuff, and we touched on that last week. There's the exclusive U2's figurines, there's the hazmat suit, and what was the other one?
Yeah, the heavy scientist.
And the heavy scientist, that's it. And if you purchase those, like in life at U2's, or I should say IRL at U2's.com, I think it is. Check it out and feel free to post a link in chat if you got it. But you buy these figurines. I think they're little bobbleheads. I've never had a U2s before. I've like seen them on Twitter, but and they're cute. But the idea is you buy them, you pre-order them now. They'll ship in June of this year, apparently. And if you pre-order one, if you buy one or both of these, then you'll get access to that in-game item. And you can see the in-game item here. Definitely cute little guys. You can go up to them, you can poke them, their heads bobble. If you poke them too much, they fall apart and break. As of last week, they weren't providing any comfort or anything like that. I don't know if that's changed this week.
Not for the minute, but I'm sure they're not finalised. To be fair,
And yeah, I think they're, I'm not sure if they're going to come in for the people who pre-ordered them before it's actually shipped in June, before like the actual item is shipped, or if these are going to wait until the people get their items and then there'll be like, I don't know, a QR code on the item that you scan with your Steam to get the item in your inventory. Admins can spawn these in at the moment, but they are still a work in progress. So no crafting cost information or anything like that. And it looks like they're purely decorative and for just poking at your leisure. So I don't think there's going to be any huge like game play improvements by having one of these figurines. But that's what's going on with the U2's stuff. And then shoot, there was another part of that question, and my brain's
Lunar.
so fogged. That's it, the lunar stuff. Thank you. There is going to be, I believe, some Chinese New Year stuff happening. They've done a Chinese New Year event and special skins for the Chinese New Year every year for the past several years. So I do think this year will still be the case. We will still see some Lunar New Year stuff, but I don't know specifically if we're going to have some new items or it's going to be a bring back of some old items or maybe a little bit of both. We'll keep you posted on that.
Do you think they will change the white color on the barrels?
I do. I do. I feel like that's a temporary thing on staging right now that's in like process. So I think what we're seeing here is a work in progress. I don't think the all the barrels are just going to be white. And I don't think like the blue long sleeve shirt is going to stay gray. I think this is just the state of staging right now. It's something that is whip, as they say.
Give me one second. I'm just posting the link for the U2s.
Ah, yes, thank you.
There, this should be it. Okay, there's no more questions. Do we have
Uh,
any news from the Rustafied though?
we changed solos to bi-weekly as of last week. We're doing a round of onboarding, so we just had some good interviews this week. So we got some more moderators coming on. We continue when we touch on the anti-cheat stuff. We continue to improve our uh, custom and third-party anti-cheat solutions. Because if you're not aware, we have for the past year, over a year, been working on our own anti-cheat solutions because we can't count on EAC to do what it's paid to do. If we're just going to call a spade, they're not fucking doing their job. So we've been doing our own anti-cheat stuff, and that's been improving as well. And we've been cranking that up. The goal being that, at least on Rustafied servers, hackers often get caught before anyone even notices that they are hacking, and they get removed before they are a huge detriment to gameplay. That's the goal. We're not there yet, of course. Hackers are still a huge problem, but we are making leaps and bounds forward every week. And we've got our new website, my.rustified.com. So if you want to report hackers, you can do so there. And then you can follow up on the reports, get ticket IDs to give to moderators to follow up on reports and all that good stuff. So we're making improvements there weekly as well. We do have our leaderboards and our stat system planned for later this year. And we're also working on a new e-commerce site because the VIP purchasing process for Rustified is kind of crap. I'll be honest. It's on an old platform that was never even designed for this use anyway. And so we're working with developers to build that from the ground up. So it's a real streamlined experience. You just sign in through Steam, you click the server you want, boom, you got VIP. So that's another thing we've got planned. And that's just a couple Rustified related things. I do see someone asking about crossplay and why
Yeah, I
Rust
was just about
doesn't
to ask
have
that.
crossplay. And I think that's a great thing to touch on because, yes, there is a console version of the game and there's a PC version of the game. And it would make sense to maybe be able to crossplay, but that is not going to happen. I'll just tell you, that ain't never going to happen. I know I used a double negative there, but seriously, it's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. It's basically because Rust Console is a completely different game. They essentially rebuilt the game from the ground up, and it was basically like a port of the game. And they didn't build it from the ground up necessarily, but they basically ported the game in a state of like 2, 3, 4 years ago, and then use that as the baseline to like port over. So by the time the console version of the game went live, there was already like a ton of new content and new features and new things that the PC version has that the console version doesn't have. And so essentially, and now the console version is releasing things and bringing like these features and things slowly into the console version, the things that are in the PC version, but essentially they're two completely different games. And I don't ever see the console version getting synced up in a way with the PC version that would ever allow true crossplay. Now, for Rust 2, maybe. Maybe they'll do it differently for Rust 2, but I don't see Rust 2 coming anytime in the next several years. I think if it even happens, because we can say it's a thing because Gary mentioned Rust 2 once in a blog post late last year, but that's about the only thing that we've heard officially about Rust 2. So it's hard to say that Rust 2 will definitively come. I imagine it will, but I think it's years away. And maybe Rust 2 will have crossplay, but I wouldn't hold your breath because that wouldn't be healthy.
I see someone is asking, any more news on the Nexus server link gameplay?
Yeah, that they did touch on in the dev blog last week, and they're still working on it basically. If you're not aware, the Nexus stuff allows them to cluster servers together and enable players to travel from one server to another in game using like flight or boats and traveling to the edge of the map. And this is a really cool concept because you could effectively link unlimited servers. You could have different environments and different servers, different clusters for different things, and really create some interesting gameplay elements. That said, it is still very much a work in progress, and they're shooting to release it in 2024 when it's ready. But, and I quote, there's still much work is still ahead of us. So I think if we do see Nexus, it's going to be late this year, probably quarter 3 or quarter 4. I don't think we're going to see it in the beginning part of this year.
Do you think the old recall will come back?
No, I absolutely do not think the old recoil will come back. If they were going to like backtrack like that and rip that band-aid off and go back to the old recoil, I think they would have done it within, let's say, 60 days of launching the new recoil. And And they have in the history of things like launched things and then reverted them back or tried a different approach. In this case with the recoil, I think absolutely not. They will not revert just to the old recoil, but I do think we will see a number of changes, and they even said they're going to be working on this to the meta of gunplay this year, such that maybe some facets of old recoil and some of the things that people like about old recoil might come back in a certain way. But the idea of just old recoil just coming in back again, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know if you guys answered this already, but why Brazil servers doesn't have on Rustafied anymore?
Yeah, that was a long kind of thing. Long story short, we several years ago opened servers for the first time in Brazil because there is a great and large South American population who plays the game, and they're underrepresented from a server and especially an official server standpoint. And so we found a host that actually did have DDoS protection and was out of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and it looked like they could be a reliable host. And so we opened the Rustified BR servers once we had that host. We ran them for a while. Turns out that host wasn't even that great. And then they went out of business because, well, I guess they weren't that great. And then we got with another host who said they were setting up a data center or setting up a location in a data center in Sao Paulo, and they could host us. And so we ordered hardware with them. We had it shipped down to Brazil. It got caught in customs. It got stolen from customs. We sent another batch of hardware down there. It got caught in customs, and we never saw it again. And then because the Brazil host went out of business, we had to host out of Texas, the BR servers. And people were like, this isn't a BR server, it's hosted out of the USA. And I'm like, yeah, we're trying to get into Brazil, but it's hard because motherfuckers keep stealing our shit. And at a certain point, beginning of last year, there was no sign, no end in sight to getting actually in a Brazil data center. A couple other things happened that indicated it was not improving. And so I just called it at the beginning of last year. Actually, I said, sorry, BR, but we're shutting these servers down because I'm not going to run South American servers out of the US and just call that a South American server. That's not a South American server, that's a US server. And it's just not feasible to get reliable hosting in that region, unfortunately, for a reasonable price. And so I will consider as things change and we go forward because I do know there's a large population who likes to play in South America, but it was just unfeasible to have a server hosted up to our quality standards. And so I just pulled the plug eventually.
Why isn't there a filter on the server list to order by wipe time? I like to play fresh wipe and I'm struggling to find them in the server list.
Yeah, I feel you. You can go to justwiped.net, which is a third party resource that does show servers that just wiped, hence the name. Uh, but I feel you on the in game server, it would make sense to have that. Now, they did mention that there are changes to the server, in game server browser coming. That was just mentioned as early as the dev blog last week. And so, will that new version of the browser include sorting by wipe time? I don't know. I hope it does, but it's all to say there is a new version coming, so maybe they'll address that when that comes in later this year.
Let's do a recap.
Yeah, we'll do a little recapity cap here. Once again, we are just 1 week since the big update in Forced Wipe, and as with many first weeks after the Forced Wipe, there's not a lot to show on staging. We were hoping backpacks would be in staging as of now. Unfortunately, they are not quite on staging for public testing and consumption yet. We do expect them still to hit staging in the next several days. As the dev blog last week said, it would go live on staging for public testing this week. Nevertheless, we do know a couple things about backpacks, and I'll run through them real quick. There's going to be two types of backpacks, a small backpack and a large backpack. Small backpack will have 12 slots and will be craftable. It'll cost 5 sewing kits and 50 cloth, subject to change. All of this is subject to change. The large backpack will not be craftable, but it will have 30 slots. 30 slots. That's a lot more slots. And you'll have to either find this or purchase it somewhere, as it apparently will not be craftable. Apparently, the backpacks will not slow movement speed at all. That's Alistair apparently tweeted that will not be a nerf to the backpacks. So we don't know if there will be a downside to having a backpack. Maybe you'll just have a backpack, you'll carry an extra 30 slots on you, and that's that. Bob's your uncle. Maybe it'll just be that you're a bigger target because your hitbox is bigger wearing a backpack. We'll have to see. This is all stuff and more that we'll test once the backpacks actually hit staging. And I do plan on updating my article on Rustafied.com and probably tweeting about some specifics of the backpacks that are unknown that come to light once the staging uh, server has backpacks on it. So I'll let you know. We'll update the article, and then ideally next week, this time, same place, we'll stream and show you off in person all the information you want to know about the backpacks. Nevertheless, backpacks are coming for the February 1st update, and it stands to be a big paradigm shift for inventory management. So excited to see how that goes. Also, we're seeing a lot of work on metal detectors. This is a new item coming in that, well, you guessed it, it'll detect metal. What is that going to be used for in the game exactly? Is there going to be like a new mini game coming with that? Is this going to be a new way that you can maybe pick up some metal pieces on the ground? Is this going to be used to find hidden stashes that have metal in it? I guess the hidden stash maybe has a metal buckle. Maybe that would ping just any hidden stash. I don't know. Not sure exactly how these are going to come into the game yet. And we haven't heard anything specifically from the devs to clarify. Nevertheless, commits on this are very quick. There's a good, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. There's a lot of commits on this. They're working on it. They're working on it hard. So that stands to reason that that we'll probably see them in game in the next month or two. And as soon as we see it on the staging branch, then we'll do a full deep dive into it and let you know everything you need to know about the metal detectors as a player. There's also a bunch of other stuff being worked on, and a lot of this is in line with what they stated on the dev blog last week on what their plans for the year are. So we're seeing work on redesigning some monuments. Specifically, the compound is being redesigned now. We're seeing some new cosmetic flowers being worked on. So uh, as you're walking around Rust in the near future, there might be some more pretty flowers about. They fixed the size of the burst module attachment. It was apparently too big. There's some new barrel textures coming in. And we are on staging seeing some changes to FX and textures. It looks to be a work in progress because the barrels are all white. My blue long sleeve shirt is like a gray, and the fireplace looks like a blinding sun blur. So I think there are some active projects in process around this on staging right now. Along with that, they're working on some new explosion FX as well. They're doing more work on the player rigs, and that's like how the players function and how uh, ragdolls function, all that stuff. There's going to be some improvements to the map vendor UI for the in-game map, which should be interesting. And then they also did do a pass on repair calculations and repair costs for specifically items with a lot of component ingredients. And so what that equates to, long and short, is that auto turrets are now much cheaper to repair because it's just calculating them differently. Also going on, we got Trust in Rust is going on this weekend. That's an event run by Rustoria, and we don't have anything to do with it, but I do recommend you go check it out. Go to twitch.facepunch.com. There's going to be some exclusive drops. You can go support your different teams, and it's going to run for a week. And it all supports a great cause of cancer research in the UK. And so I recommend you go check that out and support them if you are able to. And yeah, I think that about does it for the recapity cap.
One question left for now. Do you think we'll get skins for backpacks and parachutes?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think they're planning on allowing many items in the game to be skinned, and that's based on what I've heard in the past. Now, will that come out immediately with the backpacks release? I doubt it. I think it'll probably wait some time, but I imagine backpack skins will be coming in, and it's probably only a matter of time. Same thing with parachute skins. That just makes sense.
Yeah, they did mention years back that they wanted to skin everything in the game, basically, right?
Yeah, back way back in the day, probably in like 2016, when Helk was a special guest on one of these streams, he was asked, "Will a specific gun be skinnable?" And he basically said, "In the long term, we want everything, even base building components, to be skinnable." Now we are seeing some of that with the base decor DLCs and the building block DLCs and everything. But yeah, I imagine over time most items in game will become skinnable. It's a good way to monetize. It's a good way to get the community involved, and it doesn't really, in most cases, drastically change gameplay.
Is there any news with the camera quality on the Rust Plus app?
I haven't heard anything with that. It's other than it's just bad quality. I don't know if they're working to improve that. I think there's some limitations with the amount of data they can reliably send from the server to the Rust Plus API without having a degradation to performance all the way around. So I wouldn't hold your breath to see better quality there.
I want vehicle skins.
Yeah. Oh, and apparently they're working on a new truck too. That's one of the things I forgot to mention. We're seeing this new truck M939, and they're working on some new truck models. I'm not sure if that's going to be a player drivable truck or if that's part of the Monument redesign and update. So we'll keep you posted on that too. But yeah, I think car skins. I think skin all the things. Fuck it. Why not?
I actually see Blade Edge say, for a game that I bought 10 years ago for half the price it is now, I don't mind buying the skins. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And also a lot of people get their panties in a bunch about the DLCs coming out and like, oh, they're money grabbing and everything like that. It's like, well, they need to keep making money off of this if you want to keep seeing them develop.
Yeah,
And also, this is funding, not to get into the business model of Facepunch or anything, but it's pretty clear that Rust is funding further development on Sandbox, which is like that Gary's Mod 2, even though it's not that type of game creation thing. And I'm all for it. Keep releasing DLCs. Keep making that money, Facepunch, because if that keeps you able to keep developing this awesome freaking game, then why not? They're optional. Who cares?
yeah, I
But
was
that's
about
just
to
that's just
say,
my opinion.
yeah, you don't have to buy it just because you can, and it's not giving you an advantage for everyone else in the game and stuff. So,
Yeah, I picture people running around the map and seeing like someone with like uh what is it, Adobe Base and being like, oh, that son of a bitch
yeah,
getting that Adobe Base DLC. What a
he
that
has
makes me so mad.
better base
Damn
than me.
face punch, money grubbing motherfucker. Arr. It's like, really, guys? Isn't there more to be upset about? Let them get that money. Get that money, face punch. Keep developing that game, yo. I want them to be successful. I want them to make that money, and I want to support them in doing so, because, well, that's where we're at.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of developers actually using so much time for so many years, like just on point all the time.
Yeah, they freaking earned it, yo.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
also, I think the base DLCs are pretty sweet. If you don't like them, don't buy them.
Yeah. I think that's it, Bugs. No more questions.
Cool. Oh, I do see one on Ruin finally launched. Oof, I wish, man. I was excited about Ruin, but if you're not aware, Ruin was like a Rust spinoff, being handled, I think, by the guy who did Happus, if I'm correct. And this was a couple years ago, and then it was shit canned. But it was going to be like this fantasy open world version of Rust, which looked pretty cool and was definitely interesting. But it got shit canned, unfortunately. So I don't think we're ever going to see it unless some modding community takes it on themselves to do, which I wouldn't rule out, but I don't think we're going to see it from Facepunch.
I just saw one question for you, Bugs. Hey, Bugs, have you heard about the carbon mod and what's your thought about it?
No, I got to look into that actually. I heard about that. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. But it does look interesting from what I've seen. I don't have any real feedback on it yet. I got to look into it more, but definitely an interesting thing to see come in. And I'm always happy to see expansions in the modding space. I think that's a great thing for longevity of any game is community involvement and modding. So it's cool to see, but I don't really have any information on it. I got to watch Shadowfrax's video.
Yeah, he said Shadowfax just released 1 hour ago, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I have heard a thing or two about it in passing. And it's made some waves you can say in the background, but I don't know too much about it. So gonna watch that video. Definitely interesting though.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about now?
Oh,
No
I
more
don't know.
questions.
It's a slow news week. So I think we're going to wind this puppy down early this week. I do so appreciate everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Artemis and Miss D, as always, for being my co MCs.
You're welcome as always.
Yep, you're most welcome.
And yeah, we'll be back as always, same time, same place next week to show you off, hopefully, the backpacks on staging. Also, article every week, rustified.com goes live first thing Thursday Eastern Time, so like midnight Thursday Eastern Time, summarizes everything going on in Rust development in pictures and text. I will update this week's article if the backpacks get merged in like later today or tomorrow with any important information about the backpacks you may want to know. And then we'll probably have a write up on next week's article summarizing everything as well. So also check us out on X if you're still on there. Rustafied on X will post shorts and information throughout the week as stuff hits staging. But yeah, just a huge thank you to everyone. Just a friendly reminder, we are not developers of the game. We are not on the Facepunch payroll. We are just an independent organization who loves reporting on development news and running the best servers that we can. And the only way we can do that week after week, month after month, is through the support of our community. So to each and every one of you who tunes in and watches, people who give bits, people who subscribe on Twitch, and our wonderful, beautiful, loyal VIP customers, thank you all so much because we wouldn't be able to do this literally without you. So thank you so much for the support. Much love to you all. And yeah, we're just going to call it at that. I hope you all have a wonderful week and a wonderful wipe. This is Bugs signing off.